Welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to summarize Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Jane Eyre is a classic novel that tells the story of an orphaned young woman who becomes a governess and falls in love with her employer, Mr. Rochester. Despite the obstacles they face, Jane and Mr. Rochester ultimately find happiness together. The novel explores themes of love, class, and gender, and features a cast of memorable characters. Chapter 1 Jane Eyre, an orphan, is living with her cruel aunt and cousins at Thornfield Hall. After being mistreated by her cousin John, Jane is sent to the Red Room as punishment. Chapter 2 Jane is sent away to Lowood School, a harsh and strict institution for orphans. She becomes friends with a girl named Helen Burns, but is saddened when Helen dies of tuberculosis. Chapter 3 Jane spends the next few years at Lowood as a student and later as a teacher. She is eventually offered a job as a governess at Thornfield Hall. Chapter 4 Jane arrives at Thornfield Hall and meets Mr. Rochester, the owner of the estate. She becomes his governess and they develop a close relationship. Chapter 5 Jane learns more about Mr. Rochester's past and his complicated relationships with the people in his life, including a woman named Bertha Mason. Chapter 6 Jane and Mr. Rochester's relationship deepens and he proposes to her. However, their engagement is cut short when it is revealed that Mr. Rochester is already married to Bertha Mason. Chapter 7 Jane leaves Thornfield Hall and begins a new life as a school teacher in a small village. Chapter 8 Jane's life as a school teacher is unsatisfying and she longs for adventure. She eventually decides to leave her job and travel to a new town. Chapter 9 Jane meets St. John Rivers, a clergyman, and his sisters. She becomes close to them and eventually discovers that they are actually her cousins. Chapter 10 St. John proposes to Jane and asks her to accompany him to India as his wife and fellow missionary. However, Jane realizes that she cannot marry him and chooses to return to Mr. Rochester instead. Chapter 11 Jane returns to Thornfield Hall and discovers that it has been burned down by Bertha Mason, who died in the fire. Mr. Rochester has been blinded and lost a hand in the incident. Chapter 12 Jane and Mr. Rochester are reunited and he proposes to her again. This time, they are able to marry and live happily ever after. Overall, Jane Eyre is a classic romance novel that follows the journey of an independent and strong-willed young woman as she navigates the complexities of love and societal expectations. The novel explores themes of identity, class, and gender, and features a cast of memorable characters. The story is a timeless tale of love, redemption, and the triumph of the human spirit. Thanks for watching. To read the full version of the book, click on the link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for similar content.